On this episode, we sorta, kinda have to discuss the recent Myanmar earthquake and its effect on Bangkok.
So if you're like us and find it fascinating to see how Bangkok reacts to major emergencies, you'll dig this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
All right, patrons, a little pre-show roll, but that we're only going to use the audio for the regular listeners of the podcast, so they won't see this. But because I don't have my laptop, like I said on the main show or the bonus show, you might see us reading a little bit from the sheets here because we don't memorize these scripts every week. So forgive us for that. Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 because I saw a movie about a young guy on a beach chasing the one thing we are all looking for. And of course, I'm talking about the Blue Lagoon.
Or Brooke Shields.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we're looking for. Brooke Shields.
And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 24 years ago. Fell in love with the widespread use of red Fanta soda, an American brand, as an offering to Thai spirit houses, so I never left.
I never really questioned where the brand comes from, but I guess...
It's American soft power, dude.
What about, why don't they use that Thai red syrup that they pour into soda water?
Because it's not American, that's what I'm trying to tell you.
They're not offering the spirits just American stuff.
No,
it's
red Fanta. No, red Fanta dominates.
Yeah, I know that, but they're not saying, here spirits, an American produced
How do you
product.
know? That's my point.
The ghosts are fans of tariffs now, are they?
No, it's American soft power.
All right,
so I support it.
American soda power.
All right, we want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads-up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about some bizarre ancient skeletons found under a hospital in Thonburi, actually not far from where we are right now. We also talked about a hospital simulating a mass crash event, which they're preparing for in case it happens during Songkran, and the new digital arrival card, which, as you might expect, is not exactly perfect. To learn how to become a patron and get all this good stuff, plus full access to over 700 bonus and regular back episodes, click the support button at the top of our website.
That's right. And if you're a patron, you saw the bonus show. And of course, we have to give a shout out to our friend Dave, who gave us this 1 liter bottle of maple syrup. Actually, he gave one to you, one to me.
Correct.
So that should put you over the top for diabetes supplies for the next little while.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. Maple syrup offerings are always appreciated. All right, well, on this episode, we sort of had our topic chosen for us. And by that, of course, I mean the Myanmar earthquake, which happened on March 28th, 2025, and which was felt quite strongly in Bangkok and other areas in Thailand. Now, we dithered about it a little bit because by the time this episode drops, the quake will be 12 days old, and I'm sure that everyone has seen and heard a ton of news about it already. But things like this are such big news that it is impossible to ignore, so we're going to do it. And we're just going to talk about what our experiences were when it happened, how Bangkok reacted, and what it says about disaster preparedness in general in Thailand.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are wondering if it's safe to travel to Bangkok. Bangkokers like us, notice I didn't say Bangkokian,
I got it.
Bangkoker.
I got it.
Are worried about the future. What if there's another quake? There could be an aftershock. So I think there is a lot to unpack here, even though, of course, it's been all over the news. I think there's a lot to unpack here. So I've heard the story before, but what was your story when the actual quake occurred?
Yeah, well, I was at work. It happened at like 1 p.m. on Friday.
Around 1:20, something like that.
So I was at work, and I was on the third floor, and immediately, for some reason, felt like I was very drunk, very dizzy. And then I noticed the lights that were hanging from the roof were like
really?
like this.
Okay.
And then I looked around, and everyone was walking towards the door, and so
geez.
we just basically it was actually, it says a lot about our little company because everyone calmly and quickly exited the building.
Oh, so there
went
was
out to
no
the road.
panicking, no screams or anything?
No, me, I might have screamed a little bit, but no, everyone just kind of walked out onto the road, and we just sort of sat there and started sending messages and making sure that everyone was okay. And it was to be honest, it was pretty uneventful, and it was sort of more exciting than it was scary. But we didn't really know what was happening. And we were outside, and there's some cranes doing construction projects, and they were swaying a little bit. So,
listeners, you probably know this, but for most people in Bangkok, there were no major injuries, no major problems. We're going to get into some finer details. But there was one collapsed building, which is quite a serious event because there were a number of workers that were in the building at the time. And right now, quite distant from the actual quake, they're still actually digging now. So prayers out to those people if there's any possible survivors.
Right.
In my case, I was here, just a couple feet from where we are right now. And I got to be honest, I thought I was getting dizzy. And my first reaction was, God, I'm getting old. I was thinking, I'm getting dizzy and I'm sitting down.
Right.
And my last thought before I realized that it wasn't me, just me, my last thought was, is this what the rest of my life's going to be like? Is this what getting old?
Downhill from here.
And it's funny because I told this to my students, and one of my students said that he thought the same thing, except he thought he needed sugar. He was like, Ajahn, I thought maybe I wasn't eating enough sugar, and I got dizzy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But then I noticed, so I didn't see any shaking of anything, but I could very subtly see, when I looked out, like what's going on, I could very subtly see the floor shifting.
Really? In your place here? The whole place?
Like it's a very, it's subtle, but things were kind of swaying.
Wow.
But not in a major way, but just enough that I realized, oh, it's not me.
Right.
Okay. And it wasn't, listeners out there, it wasn't short, actually. It went on, I don't know how long, I don't know if it went on for minutes, but it wasn't just like a 3-second thing. It wasn't like that.
No, it was...
Maybe like a minute or...
I went down 3 stories, and from the top, and we weren't running, we were just, sort of going downstairs. So yeah, from the time we left, before we left, actually, because it took us a few seconds to realize what was happening, to the time we got probably down to the first floor, it was shaking the whole time.
Yeah, it was a couple minutes probably. So very weird. I mean, to be honest, for me, it wasn't scary, but it was just weird.
Right.
And then, of course, you get online and you hear, for some people, it's quite scary. It seems the taller the building, the more swaying there was. And just in general, but for the building that collapsed, mostly there was superficial damage, still potentially scary.
Yeah.
So things falling off of buildings. There were some rooftop pools on hotels or condos where the water's like sloshing out of the pool, like falling down the building. And then to me, one of the scariest things was those 3 towers on Sukhumvit that were connected by sky bridges, and the bridges detached, which apparently is part of the design.
That's
maple syrup is good for a lot of things. Apparently, by design, the bridges are meant to detach in case of an earthquake, and that's exactly what they did. They kind of separate, and you can see it on video that it separates. You can see the structures waving back and forth. Now, did you see the story about the Korean dude?
Yeah, the guy that jumped.
It's incredible.
It's like The Rock in an action movie.
So yeah, no, I mean, actually, you can barely see him on video. Like it's like
2 pixels tall.
Yeah, but apparently he was in one tower exercising when his wife and kid were in the other tower. And during the earthquake, he tried to get back, and it had separated. I don't know exactly how big the gap was, but he actually leapt over the gap.
Oh man!
Now, would you have done that, Mr. Greg? I must save my boy.
He's probably fine. Probably fine. When I was outside on the street waiting for everything to happen, I was talking to people and sort of figuring out what to do next. Didn't even think of my son because I was like, he's at school. They've got evacuation drills. Teachers take care of all this stuff, so he's cool. And then I thought, and then I got a call from my wife, and she was like, "Hey, our boy, where's our boy?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, right." Because then I remembered he's not at school that day. He was at home by himself. Geez. It was parent-teacher interviews, so the school was closed. So he's at home. So she's like,
"You did not even think."
I just assumed he was at school where all the safety drills were.
We can laugh about it now.
Yeah, but anyway, I called him and I was like, "Hey, buddy, what's going on?" He's like, "Oh, I think there was an earthquake. It was all shaking." And I said, "Yeah." He said, so I told him to go outside, like find this lady that we know in the building. She has a daughter. I'm like, find her and hang out with her by the swimming pool. And to be honest, he he found it more, like I said, he found it more exciting than scary. He thought it was kind of
Right.
interesting. And we live in a low-rise building, so it's only 8 stories tall, so there was no swaying, there was no damage or anything.
Now, I think from talking to our buddies and friends, I think it was a scarier experience for people higher up.
Yeah.
Number one, because there's more swaying. Things did fall off shelves, so I had friends who items fell off shelves. The facing, one of our buddies, like in the kitchen, the actual, like almost the tiles fell off the wall. And then the elevator shut down, so they had to evacuate down 20, 25
Wow.
flights in some cases.
Yeah.
And they had to move quickly. You know, so like my buddy said, he basically ran down. In this case, he was like 16 floors up.
Wow.
So I think for some people, it was a quite terrifying experience. But we had a lot of things we want to talk about because I think this event raises certain questions about Bangkok and whether number one, Bangkok buildings are safe. Like overall, how do you think Bangkok buildings did?
Well, pretty good. And I can say a lot about this. Now, over the years, I've heard a lot of random chatter around bars and beers and dinners and things like that, just conversations about how the city works. And many, many times I've heard someone say, man, if Bangkok ever gets hit by a big earthquake, we are dead, we're screwed. All the buildings are going to pancake because people just don't have a lot of natural built-in trust about
Construction.
Bangkok infrastructure, because
That's right, yeah.
Call it what you will, like, oh, there's all skimming off the top, there's cutting corners, there's corruption, there's, people paid to look the other way, whatever you want to call
There's
it.
a reputation
Yeah.
for corruption when it comes to building. And there's also this, we talked about it when there was that horrific bus fire.
Right.
There seems to be a culture of non-compliance with safety regulations.
Yeah, and it happens a lot. Those concerns are not nothing. They're based on real events. Like over the years, there's been dozens and dozens of incidents where gates have fallen on people, or pieces have fallen off of buildings, or cement screws have fallen off the expressways onto cars. Like people get hurt, or that woman who was killed with a tree fell over in front of Central. The Central on Sukhumvit, I forget what it's called. Central what? Not Embassy.
Central Embassy.
No, Central. No, the other one next door. I forget what it's called. I'm showing my age. Anyway, things happen. People have been hurt seriously or killed by infrastructure not being built properly. So those fears, I think, are well founded. But save one very tragic event, I think.
Yeah, so the building that collapsed was, number one, it was under construction, so it wasn't completed. Now, I think that even when buildings are being constructed, there are ways you can construct them that they should still be safe.
Right.
Obviously, you're building the foundation first. I'm not a structural engineer, but they should be safe during the construction process. And right now, there's a lot of scrutiny on that building, the company that built it, the construction methods. And I was just mentioning to Greg before the show, the government seems to be taking it pretty damn seriously. A lot of times there's a news story and it flashes and then you just never hear about it again.
Right.
But this seems different. I mean, obviously there's still crews there in case there's people still in the wreckage. But the government seems quite serious about figuring out why that one building in all of Bangkok. I'm actually kind of surprised that only one building went down. Think of all there's a lot of really old buildings in Bangkok.
Have you seen the meme going around? It's maybe a little bit distasteful, but more funny than anything. But it's the ghost tower, the old ghost tower.
Yeah.
And someone put the muscle arms emojis off of either side of it, showing how strong. I mean, that's a 30-year-old building that's not even finished.
Right, but there's a lot of old structures. I mean, where we hang out in Chinatown, it's amazing that those old structures, I mean, I guess obviously they're not super tall, but there's a lot of structures that look rickety.
Yeah,
and they didn't go down. And with a little research, and it was actually in the news, apparently Thai building codes were updated in 2007 to require earthquake-safe construction. Maybe not earthquake-proof, but earthquake-safe construction. And so apparently newer buildings are totally safe as long as we don't have some massive epicenter right here in Bangkok.
Right. I'd love to get a structural engineer on the show to talk about that. If anyone knows anyone, let us know, because I don't know any.
Right.
And they've got to be I think they've probably got to be pretty confident in themselves and their career and their work to come on and talk about that.
Right.
Especially these
Now,
days.
most people...
Let me say one thing more about that building. The building that collapsed, obviously that was a terrible tragedy. Dozens and dozens of people were trapped inside. Probably a lot of them were dead, or were killed, or things are not looking well. We're recording this on April 5th, so it's been 8 days since like that. So yeah, it was a definite tragedy. But I read that building broke 2 records, not good records. The first one was it was the only building, the building that was furthest away from an epicenter to collapse, in history.
Oh wow!
And it was also there was one more like that. I can't remember but it was the only building like something to collapse as well. So it set 2 very not
brutal
great records for building.
They got to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
I mean, given the fact that it was the only one.
Yeah.
I mean, it does indicate that there was something super shoddy about that.
Although I did, and I've spent too much time on Reddit, but someone linked to I think a Der Spiegel article, so I translated it from German, and some structural engineer in German, which I think you could probably trust German structural engineers, they said that actually cement gets stronger as it cures, so like over a period of several months, it actually reaches its full strength. So it's possible
that the cement wasn't cured?
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But there was plenty of damage done to buildings. We want to make clear that there's a lot of towers that have damage to the facing, cracks.
Yeah.
There's a lot of apparently superficial damage. So
hopefully it's superficial.
Yeah, superficial. So
cosmetic and not structural.
I think almost everyone has been allowed back into their buildings, but there's a few. One of my students said that there's something wrong with her condo, and she still hasn't been allowed back in her condo. So
really?
she had to leave Bangkok and stay with her parents.
Oh wow!
So I think there's a few buildings that they haven't let residents back into, even though the buildings are standing. They see something funky maybe with the cracks or the damage.
Yeah, man, can you imagine being stuck outside your building and then someone says, okay, you can go back in now. I have declared it safe.
Yeah, right.
I'm putting a lot of faith in you, stranger.
Well, you and I had some friends who can remain nameless, but they wouldn't go back in their building for a few days, so they got a hotel for a few days.
Yeah. It's pretty gnarly.
I mean, in the case of my building, it did shake a little bit, but I haven't seen any crack. Have you seen any damage at all to your building? Cracks?
None at all. We live in a low rise, so it was probably spared a lot of the swaying and swinging. But we weren't evacuated. As far as I know, there's been no problems at all. Lucky.
Well, for me, the craziest effect of the whole experience was the fact that they decided to close public transportation, in particular the MRT and BTS.
Dude.
And it's the only time I can remember where the whole system is shut down. In the past, there's been accidents or power outages where they've shut down partial parts of it.
Yeah, from this station to that station.
Yeah,
or something.
but I don't. Can you remember a time where they shut down both the BTS and MRT?
Maybe for like the red shirt riots or something like that.
No, but I don't think they did. I mean, they might have shut down like Siam. I don't think they shut down the whole system.
Maybe not.
Even during the riots, I don't think they did.
When they had snipers on the train tracks, they probably just shut down the Sukhumvit line, not the Selam line.
Well, just to show you how clueless I was. So the quake happened. It's all over the news. But again, I'm okay. My building's okay. And I'm supposed to meet a buddy of mine over near Khao San Road. So it took me a while to get a taxi, and things seemed a little bit weird. But this was like 30 minutes after the quake. I'm like, I'm gonna go out.
It was just like 2:30 in the afternoon, kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm gonna go meet my buddy.
Wow.
And it. So
you weren't very shaken up about it.
No, we were not shaken up. I go meet my buddy, and then as we're sitting there, we're following stuff on the news, and we start realizing, oh wow, this is really serious. Because I didn't know about the building collapsing.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that the BTS and MRT got shut down. I just thought it was this wobble and everything was fine, and so I just went on with my day.
Wow.
I just went on with my day, and so I'm sitting with my buddy, over beers in the afternoon, and we're realizing, oh my God, this is really serious.
Wow.
And then, so I probably at that point. So after hanging out for a few hours, another professor came by. We're talking about it. I was a lot to talk about, post-quake. And I probably should have went home. but I was supposed to meet another buddy.
Another beer.
But this time on Sukhumvit, and I was thinking, I'm trying to be smart about it. I was thinking, well, traffic's going to be bad, and I already knew that MRT had been shut down, so I did something that I never do, which is I never take long motorbike rides. I do take motorbike rides, but I tend to take short ones.
Right.
And I do think motorbikes are very dangerous, and the longer the ride is, especially if they're riding fast, I get too scared.
It's a numbers game. The longer you go,
that's right.
Yeah.
But I figured traffic was going to be bad, which actually slows down the motorbikes. Is what I was thinking.
Right.
So I figured I would take a motorbike all the way from Khao San to Thong Lor, which I normally would never do.
Wow,
and
Khao San to Thong Lor.
That's right. And I was using Grab and Bolt, which is roughly the same thing, and it took forever. And I almost gave. I mean, it was like 20 minutes, 30 minutes before I could just get a motorbike.
Really?
And so this is how it started to dawn on me. Like, wow, this is weird. And just the size of the problem is becoming more apparent. But I did get a rider right at the time I was going to bail. I got a rider, or no, I'm the rider. I got a
driver.
A driver, sorry. And we headed out from Khao San basically to Thong Lor, and it was a nightmare. It was constant traffic the whole time. And so the motorbike is going like this, weaving in and out of traffic, like narrow, like with rear view mirrors.
Or he's got to lean to go around this mirror and then lean to go around that mirror.
My back started hurt, my ass started hurt. I'm like, I'm too old for this. And it was about, it really was bad. I mean, I don't want to exaggerate. Like I wasn't injured, but it was miserable, dude.
Yeah.
It took an hour and 45 minutes to get to Thong Lor.
Hour? I've never spent that long on a bike on my life.
45. And it was just awkward. Also, it's awkward riding. It's not just going straight. It's like weaving in and out, stopping a lot,
Right.
like exhaust fumes.
Yeah.
And traffic was just bricked in,
Yeah.
just deadlocked. So I think it's the worst traffic I've seen in 24 and a half years. I don't remember any other time where just the whole city. So basically from Khao San to Thong Lor, it was just bricked in.
Yeah, I agree. Without a doubt, the worst traffic I've seen in 23 years. And I was at work, and I usually leave work by 5:30 or so. And I pulled up the Google Maps, and it was like Jackson Pollock had used only red paint. And it was just red, like not even a little bit red. It was dark red. And it just looked horrible. And I was like, well, I would rather drive the long way around if I'm moving versus the short way sitting still. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm not sitting in that car for that long. So I'm just going to stay at work for a while, get some work done. So I stayed at work, and I had a soda, and I left. I finally about 7:15. I was like, that should take the edge off. Still going to be bad, but what are you going to do? I'm not going to stay at work overnight. So got in the car 7:15, and I didn't get home until almost 10 o'clock.
Brutal.
Now the thing was interesting because it took a good 60% of that time was spent getting to the highway. Once I was on the highway, it was actually fairly painless.
Oh, gotcha.
Because I think, and my wife sent me a message, she said, don't go on the highway because people were scared an aftershock was going to happen and their highway was going to crack, or maybe it had already been cracked. So I think a lot of people were avoiding the highways.
So the smart people avoided the highways, and then dumb people like you were like, let's go on the highway.
You said dumb, I think you mean brave, but whatever. So most of the trip was spent just inching like bumper to bumper.
Dude, I was going in between cars. It really was miserable.
Yeah.
I mean, so finally I'm meeting another buddy for a beer, and I just got there, and I just sat down, and I'm just like, this beer is going to taste so good.
Yeah.
And he was like, dude, did you take a motorbike the whole way? I'm like, yeah.
If you would have taken a taxi, you'd still be on Khao. You'd have been 500 meters from Khao San.
Okay, the weird thing about Sukhumvit at the time is the streets were super crowded, not just the traffic, but there were tons of people walking on the street because some people couldn't get back in their buildings. And because the BTS and MRT were closed and traffic was so bad, people decided to walk.
Were you the one that said it felt like a zombie apocalypse movie, like where everyone just has to like get out and go?
Yeah, that's right. Sukhumvit was packed, and so actually the bar I was at was actually pretty crowded and fun. But like people didn't have anywhere to go. They couldn't go back into their condos. So the bar was pretty packed. Everyone was talking about the quake.
No one has any ID because their wallets are all back in the hotels.
Well,
and
it was kind of
wallets.
funny when I was buying drinks, they made us pay as we went instead of running a tab. And I asked the girl why, and she was like, "Well, we might have to flee. Like we might have to run. Like because people didn't know about aftershocks." So she's like, "We went." And so then I was speculating. I didn't ask, but I was wondering if when the quake occurred at 1:30, maybe they lost businesses or or maybe people ran out on their checks.
Maybe, and then they're standing next to the waitress, and they're like, "See ya."
Yeah.
I'm not going back.
So they made us pay as we went.
It's pretty smart.
But by the time, so I ended up actually staying out not super late that night, but I think I stayed out till midnight, and by then the traffic had relaxed.
Right.
So it took the whole day.
Well, I have to make a confession here, and this is a little bit embarrassing, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to say it, but because I don't think it's actually as embarrassing as I'm making it out to be. But like I said, I was stuck in traffic for almost 3 hours.
Brutal.
And before I left, I had a soda.
I think I know where this is going.
Dude, I peed in a bottle.
You peed in a bottle.
I peed in a bottle in the car.
Hey, man, you're a survivor. That's the way I look at it.
Dude, you are stuck in traffic, and I know there's people listening to this now going like, "Oh, gross," or something like that. But
No,
you
I
are
get it.
you're in the middle of the road. You cannot get out. There's motorcycles flying by all the time. There's people walking by.
Yeah.
Literally, the only option was to step out and piss on the road in the middle of other cars.
Yeah, in front of other people.
In front of other people where they're walking around. Literally the only
You're
option.
lucky you had a bottle, dude.
I had a 1 liter bottle, an empty 1 liter bottle in my car.
Now, was
So-
it awkward? Did you accidentally like pee on
I'm
yourself?
not going to get into the details, but things worked out okay. Lucky I'm a man. The physiology happens to work out pretty well.
A little bit easier. Yeah.
But also, I think, I'm not sure if you remember, but back in the day, like back before the BTS and everything, when this was normal, when 3-4 hour drives in Bangkok were normal, they used to have, I remember there was 2 competing products, and I didn't Google them, but listeners, if you do Google them, I'm sure you can find them. But one was called like Pee Buddy or something like that.
Oh,
and
really?
they were things that you would keep under your seat, and they were set up so you could pee in your car.
I don't remember this. I'm not a car owner.
This was before either of us were here, but
Oh.
I have seen news before. So it's certainly not unusual in Bangkok.
It's like a
been done
Canadian
before.
thing if you get stuck in a snowstorm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
But-
well, maybe you need to get a pee buddy.
I gotta get maybe there's a new market for like a resurrected market for them again. People are a little bit nervous about these kind of things.
That's right.
Now we've got to deal with airport shutdowns, more coups, floods.
Well, my lesson from the earthquake, besides the obvious thing about whatever's wrong with that building that went down, is that if the BTS and MRT close, then Bangkok basically shuts down.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you're ever in Bangkok and you hear the MRT and BTS is closed, just stay home.
Yeah.
You know, just don't try to venture out.
But
Basically, the BTS and MRT are essential now.
Right.
They've become essential
But
to the city.
it also makes me think too, like for me, like it wasn't so bad, but what's my plan B? What if I can't drive? Like what if there was a big crack in the road?
I mean,
and
all I
just
can think of is you.
Hotel.
You could have stayed at your office longer. I guess like, it took until about 11 p.m.
Yeah.
for traffic to start flowing again.
Yeah.
But there's not much you can do.
There isn't. No. And we should also say all of this is couched by the fact that although there was tragedy in Bangkok and people were affected in various capacities, it pales in comparison to what's happening in Myanmar.
Yes.
Which is just, like we said on the bonus show, that poor country just cannot catch a break. So people in Myanmar are dealing with real tragedy and real loss there. So our hearts go out to those
So
people.
most of you are probably up on what happened in Bangkok since you're fans of Bangkok. But if you want to see the effects of being close to the epicenter, then just Google Myanmar earthquake, and
Yeah.
you'll see the real damage.
Yeah, really bad for them. Anyway, I think the takeaway from this is that I think Thais are pretty resilient. Like I mentioned, there's coups, there's riots, there's airport shutdowns, there's whatever. And I think, generally speaking, they handle emergencies and the surrounding sort of chaos that goes with them. I think they handle them pretty well.
I agree. Thais are chill. They are chill.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear of. I wasn't at my university, but I heard from my buddy who was there that the students were pretty chill. No one panicked. No one freaked out.
Right. Yeah, let's just hope it doesn't happen again. The thing that's a little bit different about this and a little bit scarier is that at least when there's a coup or a flood or something like that, you can prepare, you can see it coming. For something like this, there is no warning. So
Sure.
there's nothing new, right? People in Japan and Los Angeles and things have to deal with this all the time. So
Well, now we've had one, and we handled it pretty well.
yeah,
So
but that's all I want.
that's a
I
good
don't
sign.
want another one.
Yeah, we don't want another one.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. All right. Well, like I don't think we mentioned this at the beginning of the main show, but patrons will know this because we're doing this one on video. But regular listeners who are getting the audio version might not know this, but Ed and I are sitting together tonight, and you might understand, or you might notice that it sounds a little bit different. But one of the reasons why I'm talking right now is because I'm going to actually read the notes off of a piece of paper, which I don't normally do because I usually have the computer in front of me. All right, let's do something we call Would You Rather, where one of us picks two contrasting situations tied to Thailand to debate and choose which one we'd prefer. Ed, this week, I think it's your turn.
All right, man. I was thinking of this from the bonus show where we talked about those crazy skeletons found, ancient skeletons from a couple hundred years ago found
Right.
In Thonburi.
Yeah.
And I know you're a history guy, so I know you're a fan of Rome. You've done
I'm a buff.
a buff.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was just thinking of this. We've talked before about your so-called Canadian identity and how much you, whether or not you care, whether you want to pass some on to your son or not.
Right.
So, would you rather study at this point, this juncture in your life?
Right.
Would you rather study Thai history or Canadian history?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Do you care more about some cool Canadian stuff in the past? Or would you, or is Thailand just cooler now?
You know, this is going to be an embarrassing affront to my beloved home country, but it was about 5 or 6 years ago, and I was at the Canada Day thing, which is held at the British Club, which is a little bit on the nose if you ask me. But
Right.
but someone asked me, some Thai person was there, and they were talking to me, and they said, so when was Canada like formed? And I said, 1860. And I couldn't remember. And I was like, that's embarrassing. Like, I got to remember that. So I felt, as penance, I went and I bought a book on my Kindle about Canadian history.
Gotcha.
I was like, I'm going to read up on it and get familiar with it all. Dude, it was so boring.
Oh, really?
But I have to say I'd rather learn about Thai history. And not just because I think it's more interesting than Canada, although there's probably really fascinating historical aspects of Canada. Maybe that book I bought was just bad.
Right.
But I think it's just everyone is probably more interested in a different place than the place they grew up in. So I think for me, I would rather learn about Thai history.
You know, there's a cliche that people who do, I do American studies for a living, and there's a cliche we like to say about American studies is that the reason American history is filled with so much drama is that the British basically screwed up. They screwed up the American colonies, or the British colonies in America, and that Canada is really, it's America 2.0, and the British they'd learned a few things, and so Canadian history is just more organized. There's less drama, there's less insanity.
Interesting.
There's less chaos because the British were like, okay, now we know how to handle it.
Now we really got the problems solved, the wrinkles ironed out. So let's start again.
Yeah, so America, we're the wrinkles. Okay, Canada's the smooth.
Canada's the smooth brain of colonization.
So anyway, I think that's a fair answer.
Would you rather learn about American history or?
Probably still American, because I do I do feel guilty that I should know more Thai stuff. I know some, obviously, I like what we do on the show. I'm interested in Thai history, but I'm always feeling that I should know more American stuff. I'm always running into something, or like you said, someone asked me a question, not quite that easy, but someone asked me a question about American history, and I'm just like, oh, shit. Like I can never remember. I can't never remember the presidents, like in the middle of the 1800s. It's like a black hole.
Yeah, right. And then they come at you from the other side.
It's like James Polk, Jesus. Like, how am I supposed to remember James Polk?
Then they come at you from the other side. Do you speak Thai? You're like, no, I don't do that either.
That's
I
right.
suck on two fronts.
Yeah, I would say I'm interested in Thai stuff, but I'm still more curious about American history. It's so complex.
Yeah.
A lot of wrinkles in American history.
I'm still always going to go back to Roman history, though. That's my baby.
All right, a final thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
Yeah, you can also listen to each episode on YouTube. Send us a voicemail through our website that will feature on the show. Hit me up on Blue Sky at BKK Greg. Thanks for listening, everyone. Take it easy out there. Take care of your loved ones, and we'll see you next week.
No doubt.